Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. So tonight I'm going to talk about love. The first thing to say about it is that probably what any idea you all have about love is not that.
It's a good start.
I think I once described being in love as being at a party and standing in a corner and talking to only one person all night and then leaving. I hardly ever talk about love because that word just doesn't match what you feel when you're really open to what I would say is something much greater than what any of us think of as love. So there's a poem that I've quoted before by Abhinavagupta, and the first line of it is, Shiva showers grace without any restraint, and thus there is always the presence of Anuttara, the supreme state. Lord Shiva, a.k.a. God, a.k.a. reality, a.k.a. living presence, showers grace without any restraint throughout all times and spaces, in everywhere, without any restraint. There is no restraint. There is no lack of either the presence of grace. I'm just going to say grace, and I'll explain why. I don't really resonate that much with the word love. It seems too limited. But there is always not only the presence of grace, but it is continually being offered. It's not just there, it's actually being offered. And when I think of love or grace, when I go into that experience of that, what I experience is tenderness and compassion and intelligence and an incredible subtlety of what you could call in an ordinary way empathy. So when we feel empathetic towards other people, it's because we feel something of their condition, right? That's what empathy is. It's not just thinking in an intellectual way, how does someone else feel? Empathy is much more of like a kind of an instant, I feel something that you feel. I grok it. And this other thing that's happening continually, this grace, is like super empathy, maha empathy. It's incredibly subtle and can sort of taste everything that's happening with everyone and respond to it in this tender, intelligent, no holds barred, compassionate way. So when that is happening, it has no object, or it has all objects all at once. It's not about my friend or my lover or my child. It's about everyone and everything. When we are experiencing what we call love, there's this overheated, compulsive quality, and there's always a quality of attachment, always. And it's always heavy-handed. It always lacks subtlety. It always lacks the quality of respect and tenderness for however anyone else is showing up. It's always demanding something. It's always asking to be met in a certain way. So first of all, I'll relate this feeling of grace to what's going on everywhere, but particularly in human bodies, we can feel that in the heart chakra. There is a vibration there. There's an intelligence there. There's the mind and the heart of God there, of Lord Shiva. And when you get in touch with that, it's very direct. It's not an idea. It has no demands. It has no boundaries. It has no restrictions on who it's directed toward. It doesn't ask anything of anybody. It only is trying to make itself known. That's all it's trying to do, is make itself known. And you can feel this, particularly in a human body, like our psychic apparatus. You can feel this particularly in the heart chakra, But you have to attune to it. You have to subtleize yourself in order to feel it. Feel what it's about. Feel its subtlety. Feel its intelligence. Feel the tenderness of it. I mean, tenderness is the word that just comes to mind more than love for me. You know, think about when you make something beautiful. Like maybe you make a work of art, or you make a song, or you make a beautiful meal, or you make a baby, or you make something, and then you're gazing at it, and it's very pleasing to you. What do you feel for it? It's like this overwhelming tenderness for something that you made. When we are loving someone or in love, it's always with this feeling like it's something external. There's something out there that has something we want, and we love that, and we love when it gives us what we want. When you're just looking at something you made, you don't have any of that graspy feeling, right? It's just, there's kind of this weird thing that happens when you look at something you made. Like whether it's a poem or a story or a painting or a piece of music or a piece of ceramics or jewelry or a baby or whatever it is, I find you're looking at it and there's this strange feeling like it's out there, but it's part of you. It's kind of like that experience of beta-beta, dual, non-dual. You know it's of you, and it's not just like a thought of dual, non-dual. It's actually an experience, like, it's me. No, it's out there. It's me. No, it's out there. Right? And you feel this tenderness for this thing that you produced. And it's like the subtlety of your relationship to it, especially if you create something, then you have more of a subtle relationship to it, hopefully. And I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. And it has more of the hallmark when something you created, that relationship with that has more of the hallmark of what I'm talking about is coming from the heart chakra than what we call love, when it's like just some other person or something. That feeling for your own creation that came out of your own body. A mother could have two kids. One kid goes to Harvard and does whatever. Another kid shoots heroin and gets put in jail and has a hard time. The mother loves both of them. But Judge, he's such a good boy. Of course, that's not always true. It's bullshit to say that mothers always love their kids. But in general, you know what I'm talking about. Think about, like, if you make a bad piece of art. Everybody who's ever done any art's done a bad piece of art. It's really hard to give up on it. That's more like what the relationship of big self to us. We can get in touch with this through the heart chakra opening. And the effort is not to earn it or deserve it. That is complete and utter nonsense. You don't have to merit it. You don't have to earn it. The actual work that you have to do is not to earn or merit anything or deserve anything or be finally given something, after you grind yourself into the ground. The work that you have to do is to relax and subtleize your senses so that you can feel this. And not just feel it on a gross energetic level, but feel its intelligence and all the little nuances that are there. Some people are together as couples, and you meet them and you just get the feeling that they don't even have any idea who each other is. They're just like lumps of flesh and bone relating to each other. They're just so dense. And that's the kind of life some people are having, that very much lack of subtlety, a lot of density into everything. And then there's, people that have incredible subtlety and everything in between. We're a very expandable, contractible group of folks. And our job is to take whatever methods we've been given and use them to deeply, deeply relax and subtleize our experience so that our senses can sense what's actually happening directly. And then we can discover what love is. And we can feel it absolutely just pouring through us. And that's when you feel that is when you realize that famous saying from Vedanta, I am not the doer. When you feel that love pouring through you, you realize you are just made of that and being an expression of that. And it isn't this little thing that's doing it. And you couldn't have created it. You couldn't have cultivated it. The only thing you really can do is get out of the way with your grossness, right? And then, of course, we can feel it there very easily, but it's actually everywhere. It's not just coming through the heart chakra. That just happens to be a symbol of this, a living symbol that we can get in touch with and work with. It's an apparatus to help us to recognize this. But it's completely objectless. It doesn't have any preferences. And it is that same feeling that you have for something that you created, not for something that you're trying to get from somebody or form some sort of exclusive alliance or hole up or have your needs met, that kind of thing. That's all extremely baby versions, extremely, extremely, extremely limited. So we've been taught that that's what we should want, and so many of us do want that. And just recognize that's where you're at, and the only work that you need to do to realize that you are full of this stuff already. You don't have to beg somebody else for it. Your job is to open up so you can just keep giving and giving and giving and giving. That is so much more satisfying than going around feeling like you lack something and someone else has to give it to you. You could spend lifetimes doing that, and you never really get anywhere until you recognize that that isn't where you're going to find fulfillment. That's where you're going to find temporary appeasement of loneliness, temporary appeasement of anxiety about your existence. And for some, it's like very temporary. That old saw that everyone still believes, according to the newspapers and magazines, that you get together with somebody and you fall in love and you have great sex, sort of. And then, it wears off. Of course, it wears off. And then you have to go to counseling because everything's dull after a few years. That is utterly ridiculous. That's a ridiculous narrative. But so many of us embody that. If your senses are open and you are really feeling the nuances of your relationships with other people, they do not get boring. All that means is that you were in a gross condition to begin with. You hyped yourself up into a state of excitement and intensity, and then you just got tired of doing that, and now you feel let down. That's really all that means. But if you're really open and feeling things, and it's all about giving, and it's all about exploring and discovering, and that never gets old. Even sexually, it doesn't get old. This whole narrative that we have around love is pretty bankrupt in the sense that it doesn't offer much, right? It's like a very low dollar amount bank account that it gets expended very quickly. The real fulfillment is in feeling your fullness and then continually giving that. There's no fulfillment other than the most temporary, most gross form of appeasement in getting something from somebody else to make you feel full temporarily. The longevity of all relationships is in feeling that you already are full and you're just giving. And then there's something other than what we call love or being in love. There's this much fuller banquet of appreciation and tenderness and compassion and empathy and intelligent relating and subtlety of your senses deepening and deepening. It's just a much bigger meal than what most people call love. I was in love once. I've loved lots of people, but I was in love in the classic, like ridiculously compulsive and obsessed way once. And, it happened. I went through it. I got all into it. And then it was over. I was like, whew, I never, ever want to do that again. That was a state of density. It was a state of intensity, but it was density. So sometimes we have to go through those things. I'm not saying, anyone should do anything other than what they feel like doing. But I am saying that will not give you fulfillment. Absolutely not ever. Only recognizing your own primordial fullness will give you fulfillment. You can have a certain kind of happiness, for sure. But then if the person's life is threatened, or something goes wrong, or they leave you, or you have hard time, inevitably, you have hard times, you're going to feel impoverished again. Whereas if you really are feeling the fullness that you already have, full of this love, no matter what happens, you're always feeling that. In fact, maybe even more, because let's say you make a piece of pottery and then you accidentally break it. That's like this weirdly tender, poignant feeling. You're not going, oh, my cup, I'll never, ever love again. We know that we can make more. It's much more about the relationship of creativity to what it creates than it is about getting something from some external source. So you can have that kind of temporary feeling of happiness in the best situation, but then again, when stuff goes wrong or somebody dies or goes away, you're screwed. So you feel like your happiness depended on that. Right? It didn't, really. I mean, some people occasionally have a kind of wisdom. So often people will come to me and they had some relationship, maybe it was even for a very long time, and then they break up, right? And we failed. I feel so terrible. I failed. It's like you just had 10 years of good times with that person. You didn't fail. You succeeded, and now it's over. But sometimes people have the wisdom to recognize that simple endings are not failures. But not that often, because very rarely actually do people have that kind of wisdom just naturally, because most of the time people have defined this feeling of happiness and fullness as being somehow connected to that certain other person. That's an incredibly fragile situation. That's the nature of impermanence. And it's only when we feel the permanency of this, its effulgence, its unrestrained, unending quality, that we can enjoy impermanence. We can enjoy beginnings and middles and endings. Most people enjoy the fall season. Most of us enjoy watching things die during the fall, right? But we don't enjoy watching those things go away that we have defined as being the cause of our happiness. We haven't defined summer as the cause of our happiness. So we can enjoy the dying process of fall and see its beauty and even revel in it. But if there's something that we've defined as the cause of our happiness, like a job or a house or a person, then when that thing dies or goes away, we don't have that same enjoyment of the beauty of dying. We have suffering. That's the nature of suffering. But we do have the capacity to enjoy all different states of things, whether it's things coming into being or subsisting or going away. We have the capacity to enjoy all those different things, but not when we have defined something as the source of our happiness. Then we insist that it stays around, and that just isn't real. Or not only even that it stay around, but that it stay the same all the time. We don't want things to even change, let alone die, if we've defined those things as being the cause of our happiness. So another thing that happens when we define another person as the cause of our happiness, or the only possible way we can be happy or content or fulfilled, is that we'll go running around after that thing, and lots of other opportunities will fall by the wayside. All kinds of potentials in our life will become cut off because we're following something that we've defined as our happiness. We're looking for some surety, some security in something that isn't sure and isn't secure by definition. And in the process, we're shutting down a lot of opportunity. So it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have relationships. It's just that we have to start looking for that fulfillment, that longing to have permanent feeling of fullness and fulfillment. We have to look for it in the right place. We can enjoy our relationships like spring, summer, and fall, and even winter.